As time went on and I began to understand my connection with what I like to refer as the whole, I am not separated from any of this life. I'm one with it. And I know that every sentient being, I just have a respect now for life, all life. Every sentient being shares this planet with me. I also understand that at 73 years old, I don't have to harm anyone to nourish myself.
Welcome to Nutrition Without Compromise, a podcast brought to you by Orlo Nutrition. We believe that nutrition shouldn't be an either or, that you should never have to sacrifice your morals for your health or that of our home planet. Join natural products veteran Corinna Bellizzi and experts from around the globe as they discuss healthy solutions that are better for you and better for the planet.
Welcome to another interview episode of Nutrition Without Compromise. So many of us have been on long-term health journeys, and none of our journeys look quite the same. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by none other than Chef Babette, whose transformation story is the stuff of legends. While she's in her 70s, her youth, her vigor, and her commitment to live a little healthier each day is truly awe-inspiring. She has culminated a massive social media following, owns and runs the very first vegan restaurant in Englewood, California called Stuff I Eat. She has been featured in notable media of all kinds. She's a fearless powerhouse who even went up against Starbucks for upcharging for vegan items like those nut milks and told her story on Rich Roll's podcast. Chef Babette, thank you and welcome
Oh,
to the show.
thank you for having me. You're so sweet. Man, that sounded kind of good, girl.
Well, I think on another podcast, somebody referred to Englewood as East LA. And I'm like, wow, okay, I guess that is. I just never think about directions, right? East, west,
Right,
north, south. I'm on the West Coast, but that's about as far as I go, right? Like
right.
I get lost if people start talking to me in directions. Now, I wanted to start by just having you share your story of your somewhat non-traditional path towards veganism and fitness and why shifting your diet has just been so very critical for you.
Thanks so much. Because on this human journey, we all have a story, don't we? We all have a story. And wow, when I take a look at from whence I came, I sometimes I'm just so grateful, and well, all the times I'm grateful, but I'm so amazed that I was really able to make this transition. I met my husband in 1990, and first I'm going to tell you, as a child, my mother was born in 1916. She had been a sharecropper,
Yeah.
and this woman was an awesome, awesome woman. But when it came to preparing food for us, especially once she left the Carolinas and came to Los Angeles, she felt like the food that she shared didn't taste as good as the food that came fresh out of the garden. Like, corn so sweet, peas
Mhm.
so sweet. So she got into the habit of using refined sugar and monosodium glutamate. She just wanted everything.
I mean, they taste good. Like you can't deny it. I will tell you, I heard you tell the story of your pasta sauce being sweet. It could be dessert. And I thought instantly of my older sister who lives in Colorado. She's very healthy, very health oriented. But I mean, we grew up in the same household and I've never added sugar to my marinara. I just pick really ripe tomatoes, right? And you
Right,
skin them first so it
right,
doesn't get too bitter and you take the seeds out. Like it's a process, right?
right,
But you do
right.
those things and then it's beautifully sweet and beautifully nutritious without the sugar. Well, she added
Exactly.
sugar and a chocolate bar to the marinara. And I'm just like, "Wait a minute, what?
What
Did I
are
just
you
see you put
doing?
chocolate?" And her response was, "The boys
Okay.
love it."
Yeah, that's a good one now. That's a chocolate. Are you kidding me? But
I'm
I
not.
asked
With the
her, "Will you put
tomatoes.
sugar in everything?" And she was
I
like,
don't
"Cause
know.
I wanted you guys to have the same experience that I had as a child growing up. The food was so delicious coming out of the garden." But when
Mm,
she transitioned, when she made her transition, I looked in one of her drawers and she had, now she left at 93, but she had a big bag of this sparkly monosodium glutamate in a big plastic bag. I was like, Mom, she had me so hooked on it until I would go to restaurants, and if I knew they didn't put accent in their food, I'd take a baggie, girl, and sprinkle the stuff on my food. That's how addicted I was to
mm.
refined sugar and monosodium glutamate. So love you, Mom, but that was pretty whack. Anyway, so needless to say, I suffered with the effects of asthma, eczema everywhere. I was a hot mess. My skin was really bad. Earaches all the time, missed a lot of school. And it was, she's a cigarette smoker. She was one of those L&M cigarette smokers that blew the smoke in your face if you were sitting at the table in front of her.
Mm.
So she used to think it was, she used to think it was the carpet on my bedroom floor that was making me have the issues. Come on, she had a third grade education. She never took us to doctors. You know, they just did,
Yeah.
they worked on you themselves. And I just suffered. I suffered a lot as a kid. And then she had to work a lot. Okay. She was bound and determined that she was never going to be on welfare. And so we had to stay with other folks. And
Mhm.
it wasn't always pleasant, but you know how that can be. Sometimes part of the journey is not always pleasant, even when you're a child. We have some children on the planet right now that are going through holy hell. And like I say, I don't stay wrapped up in it. I just understand that it was just part of the human experience. And that is the way that I deal with it now, to stay past it. I had some really cruel people in my life on this journey, and to the point, 5 years old, molested babysitter's son, never told anybody, had to stay with a very cruel caregiver who was my godmother, who christened me, but she couldn't stand me, she hated me for some reason. So I felt all of that, spanked with electric cords, and just
Mm.
very miserable as a kid. And then when I got into my adult life, my self-esteem wasn't all that great. Had asthma everywhere. I mean, eczema everywhere, and then asthma. So I'm already
Yeah.
worn out from this story. But
No, I mean,
I
but the reality you explain is one that will resonate with a lot of people of your
a lot
generation.
of
Like
people.
child rearing was just different.
Yes, it
And
really was. It
you know,
really was.
my
And
parents are of that
yeah,
generation too, and it's, the community raised your child often,
yes,
but sometimes you weren't in a great community. And
exactly.
so now, like, we get through the 80s and suddenly it's like, okay, children have to be watched with a microscope all the time, and you can have like a video camera at your childcare providers and all that jazz. It wasn't always that way. There weren't as many protections in place, but
No,
we also had a greater sense of community to fall back on than I think we do today. So we've lost something along the way. We really
you-
have.
you're right. You're absolutely right. Girl, I can remember when my mother would say, do not climb the fence. We lived right across the street from the elementary school, 20th Street Elementary School. And she would say, she would be at work, and she would say, do not climb the fence. If the gate is not open, you can't go skate on the schoolyard. But of
Mm.
course, we'd go around the block and climb the fence. And then, of course, her lookouts, our neighbors would call her and say, I see your daughter's on the school ground and the gates are not open. So she knew that we had climbed the fence. So, yeah, she had her spies. But like you said, it takes a village to raise a child. So she had the
Mm.
good folks, but sometimes she left me in the hands of the really strange ones. But now they're just spiritual guides. So when I run into
Mm.
strange people like that, I already know, get back, get away. And then getting together. My first husband, I was 21 years old, had my daughter at 21. He was a heroin addict and alcoholic. So that was a really rough journey. And then after I left him, I hooked up with a drug dealer who was
Mm.
dealing cocaine. And then I decided I was going to, thanks to my sister who was a drug addict, she taught me that you could now smoke cocaine. And I thought that was pretty sharp. I remember people snorting it. And then I thought, oh my God, a new way to take it? You can smoke it? And didn't know I was about to addict myself to crack cocaine with that. But thank God that only lasted for a total of 7 months. And I was able to get out of that situation. But part of this journey is just, and in terms of knowing how to eat, no, did not know how to eat. Always had indigestion, always belching, so much acid reflux, and just miserable all the time.
So I understand the hardships that you've been throughout the years, and it didn't really set you up, first of all, not with a great example of what great nutrition is, but then you met your partner in life. So I'd love for you to start there and just tell us a bit about how this transition occurred and the sort of things that you learned along the way.
I met Rondell in 1990. And when we went on our very first date, he took me to Griffith Park. I love this story so much because I was not active. I was about to
Mm.
turn 40. I met him in the spring, and I was going to turn 40 in December, and he was going to turn 42 in September. And he took me to Griffith Park, beautiful park here in Los Angeles. And they put all these wonderful hills, inclines, and I'd never done anything like that. So he takes me to Griffith Park. We're at the bottom, and we're gonna just walk up these hills. He didn't walk. He ran the whole thing backwards. And I'm thinking to myself, this is one incline after the other. Are you kidding me? And you're running the whole thing backwards. But after that, I thought to myself, one of these days, I'm so impressed by him, I am going to be able to run this hill, perhaps at a walker's pace, but I'm going to be able to stay in a running mode. Not only did he take me up that hill, he took me to his home and he prepared my very first vegan meal. And it was the first time I had ever eaten basmati brown rice. I was still
Mm.
eating Uncle Ben's and that white. And he had tofu that I kept calling chicken, green beans, awesome salad, some incredible cracked wheat bread, and I didn't have indigestion, and it it made me feel so good. I thought to myself, I'm going to try this. Plus,
Hmm.
he gifted me two books, Fit for Life, volumes 1 and 2, and also the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And of course, I'm just meeting this guy, so I'm going to go read them. And man,
Mm.
Fit for Life, number one, changed my whole attitude about eating. I didn't, girl, I used to be so miserable after I ate. And then with that knowledge, that's when it occurred to me that knowledge is so important, even as it pertains to what you ingest. It's so important to know how to feed yourself. And I've not looked back. He and I, and then of course, one thing led to another. We wind up with a restaurant sharing the food that we eat to everybody else.
Mm.
And that was we opened the restaurant in 2008, and we
Wow.
made it through COVID in Inglewood, girl. You
Yeah,
know what
that's
I'm saying?
incredible.
So
Yeah.
it is incredible. What a gift. What a
Yeah,
gift.
what a gift.
Really. Yeah.
So I think something you learned along the way, first of all, the things that you were eating before were probably both inflammatory, causing you all these problems in the first place, and also really more filler food than actual food. And I
Yes.
think we have grown accustomed to reading labels on products over the course of the
Yeah.
last several years, that we look at the nutrition facts, we're looking at fat, protein, we're looking at carbohydrates. A lot of people try to limit carbohydrates, but they don't even really understand
No,
carbohydrates
they
because they're
don't.
just looking at a number on a chart and
Exactly.
not understanding what it comes from. So I would love for you to share, first of all, something that was surprising to me when I heard you on another podcast share that Rondell was not, in fact, a vegan when he fed you that vegan meal.
No, he
I
wasn't.
assumed he was, that he brought you to this path. So, how did you guys get to this veganism, and how have you felt with the overall process? What has it changed for you?
Everything. Um, Ron said as soon as he gave me the books and I read them, we were in contact, obviously, and I said, I'm not eating meat again. I'm
Mm.
not going to do that. And he goes, okay, well, I didn't know you were getting ready to do that, but I guess I'm not either. We
Mhm.
dated for 2 years and then we got married, and that's when our life together began. He taught me a lot though, and the information that I gained, because once I started eating that way and following the advice from both Fit for Life and the mucusless diet, eating became enjoyable. You know what I mean? Because I was miserable before. When I hear people talk about I need some Tums, or my doctor gave me medicine for digestion or for indigestion, and I think, wow, I was there. And all you have to do is have a little bit of knowledge of what foods to eat together that will eliminate so much of that. I had the worst indigestion ever. I never suffer with that anymore. I made such horrible combinations. I was kind of stinky at night. I would have some serious gas that would be like, I can remember Rondo like, is something wrong with you? It's like,
Mhm.
you smell. And I don't go through that anymore. That's incredible to me. So, and then movement. I incorporated movement in my lifestyle. That's because of Rondo. And
Mhm.
my whole world changed, sweetheart. It really and truly changed. All of the eczema, I got off refined sugar. I got off of, and see, when I look at a package, and normally we don't eat out of packages, most of our food, especially at the restaurant, is live food that we prep ourselves. But if I'm eating anything out of the package, I'm going to flip that package over. And I'm going past the nutritional facts, number one, I'm going to the ingredients. What's in it?
Mhm.
And if I'm having difficulty pronouncing a paragraph full of words, then I'm kind of like, that's okay. I'd rather get
Mhm.
something, because I know an apple is an apple, corn is corn. I don't have to go through all of that. And we usually stick with organic. That both he and I decided to do that. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at my skin now at 70, almost 73 years old, incredible. My energy level, girl, I get up at between 1:30 and 2, usually like clockwork, bathroom run. I'm up, I get ready, I go to the gym. I'm at the gym for 2 hours. If I've got to work, I leave the gym. I'm going to stuff I eat. I'm prepping all the food. We have no other chef in there. We do have a person that's a griddle person, but other than that, I'm it. Every box that comes
Mhm.
through there, I'm the person prepping that food. So I don't know. The only thing that I can say is the lifestyle has been good to us. He's 75 now, and I'll be 73. So I mean, come
So
on.
you've been together over 30 years at this point. That's
Exactly. At this
that's a
point.
wonderful lifetime of experience together and living this lifestyle. And at 70, almost 73, I mean,
Yes.
I listened to a podcast recently where you were working on 100 push-ups for your
And
72nd
did them for
birthday.
my 72nd birthday in the restaurant with customers.
That's incredible. So, just for those of you that aren't watching this on YouTube, you can go to her Instagram channel, just Chef Babette, and
Yep.
you can find all these incredible videos and photos of her and various beautiful little workout gears, bikinis, everything. It's like you're an incredible fitness. Your muscle tone is exceptional. And I want to bring this up because so many of us hear time and again, well, what about the protein? How are you getting enough protein? Especially as you age, you want to be sure you're getting enough protein to maintain your muscle mass. What is going to happen with that if you aren't getting 30 to 50 grams in a single meal twice a day, something to that effect? And it's something that vegans often run up against. So I wanted to hear how you feel about that overall. And frankly, how much you think you're getting in a day, given the food that you do eat.
Sweetheart, I'm not a real bulk eater. I juice a lot. We're both of us are really big on juicing. Also, he's not a heavy eater. We don't eat a lot of bulk. My preference
Hmm.
is live food over cooked. I can make a handful of nuts a meal. I don't get real beat up over protein. I don't,
Hmm.
I know that I'm getting good stuff in the juice that I drink a lot of chlorophyll juices. Um, I
Hmm.
take my omega-3 Orlo
Yeah.
anyway. I take that. I
Keeps your
don't
omega-3 levels up, right?
You know what I'm saying? I don't do a lot
Yeah.
of other supplements though, not a lot. I like E3 Live because of the chlorophyll.
Hmm.
Spirulina, anything green, I'm on that. Lentils, but I just don't. I don't. It may sound really nuts. We're just not big eaters. We eat
Hmm.
primarily. I enjoy food, but primarily we're looking for nutrients.
Hmm.
And with what we're doing, I, I don't have a primary care physician. He's not ever sick. I'm not ever sick. It almost sounds like too good to be true, but I'm
Right.
grateful. I don't know what
Well,
else
it
to
sounds
tell
to
you
me,
about that.
yeah. This reminds me of an episode I interviewed Dr. Joel Furman on this show. And
Uh-huh.
he very much focuses on plant-based nutrition. And he sends people into the salad drawer more than anything else and teaches people to make their own salad dressings without ever using things like olive oil, even saying
There
that
you
instead
go.
you can make great tasting dressings with just, fruit juices like orange or whatever,
Right.
and nuts that are blended up. And you're eating this all raw food kind of approach and able to get people off of multiple different medications that they might be on. Now, this
Right.
episode, this podcast as a whole, is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure any of that. This is for informational and education purposes only, perhaps. But generally speaking, when people get their diet and their nutrition right, as you've shared, you suddenly want to get up and move. You
Right.
feel more vivacious. You have more energy. You might be able
Exactly.
to get up early. Now, maybe it's not 1:30 or 2 in the morning, but
But I go to
you're
bed. I can fall asleep at 6, sweetheart.
I
So,
believe it. If you're up at that
yeah,
time, I would be
yeah.
too.
I'm up really early and I get
Yeah.
my day started. But you know what? When you talk about those salad dressings, we do this one salad dressing at Stuff I Eat. It's called the carrot mango dressing. And that's nothing but a little apple cider vinegar,
Mhm.
carrot juice, mangoes, and a little Bragg's.
Mhm.
And guess what? I I will take sea moss if I just want to spruce it up a little bit. I'll throw some of the gelled sea moss in there, and I've
Mhm.
already made my salad dressing on point
Mhm.
without oil, without anything else. You know what I mean? Just blending that up, and it just is so awesome on a salad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I forgot to include the sea moss. I do enjoy sea moss.
Well,
I
you made
we
an entire recipe book about
I
cashews. So,
Oh yes,
I
cash in on
understand.
cashews.
Cash in on cashews. Now, in this book, you're essentially celebrating what is my husband's favorite nut that I've
Mine
taught
too.
myself not to love because you have the power of mind to teach yourself not to love things. I taught myself not to love bacon and also cashews because otherwise it would be all I'd ate.
And I do love cashews so much, and because of that, my mom gifted me with the sweet tooth. That's my
Hmm.
first book, cashew, a dessert book. But that cashew nut, come on, you have to admit, is
It's creamy, it's
incredible.
divine. You
It
can really
is
add it to
amazing.
anything.
I'm
Hmm.
with your husband on that. You
Yeah,
can
I mean,
savory or sweet, it doesn't
mhm,
matter. The cashews got your back. Yeah. This is
it's
such a
true.
fun interview. I love it.
Yeah, I feel that way also about pine nuts. Like I love adding
You
pine
know,
nuts
I
to
do.
things.
Oh my God. How can anybody not like pine nuts? Right?
My favorite thing is to toast them before putting them on a salad. So I know that's
The
not the
best.
raw way, but I just love what it does. So
Oh,
to the
yeah.
flavor profile, right? Really kind of nutty, but not, overdone.
Right.
So there, what I like to impart to people, impart through this podcast is a bit of inspiration to, and this is really something that you champion too, that if you've done it, so can they. I mean, the path that you've walked from being really unhealthy,
Yeah.
from having all these inflammatory concerns, from being stricken with asthma and also having eczema that you just can't bear. We interviewed another individual, Crystal DeGroot, on this show, who
Hmm.
had the kind of eczema where it like hurt to take a shower,
Yeah.
just because your skin would get so raw and
Yeah.
sensitive,
Oh,
and has also been able to walk this path through diet and nutrition to where she no longer has inflamed skin.
for her.
Often we are told by our doctors that, oh, well, this is just something that you have now, and we're going to make you feel better by giving you this cream or this drug, which is going to address the complaint, but which never really gets to the root cause. I love that you've been able to find the root cause on your own,
Yeah.
but so many don't necessarily have those tools initially. Like you went to these books, Fit for Life, but also this book about mucus. And
Oh,
so I wanted to pivot this conversation for a moment to talk about mucus because I think
yeah.
so few people actually understand what's happening here. They think of snot, but they don't necessarily understand that your entire system can get overburdened with
So
mucus.
inflamed.
So I have a story for you because this is something I encountered when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I was having some health challenges. I was diagnosed as hypothyroid. So I had to take, some thyroid medicine. And I was trying to walk the path without medication and
Hmm.
having a lot of challenges. I ended up seeing this doctor in Texas. I flew out to see him. And he saw me privately and essentially started asking me questions about my diet, only about my diet, the things I like to eat, with what frequency. And while I am not celiac and I don't have an issue with gluten per se, something that did happen when I consumed gluten is that it would give me more mucus in my system. Same thing with dairy and same thing with sugar.
Hmm.
And so, how he diagnosed this was he grabbed me at the ankle and he just pressed really hard on my ankle. And then he lifted his finger and it left a depression of his thumb that kind of stayed for a little bit. And he goes, "Do you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, what's that?" And he's just like, "You think that's fat, but it's snot. It's not, it's snot, right?" So essentially saying that my system, because fat bounds back right away, but when you get an overburdened system with too much mucus, that the mucus can actually go into your tissues. It can coat your gut. So you get leaky gut syndrome and other things that you aren't absorbing the nutrition from the food that you are eating because you've become inflamed. It ends up resident in all of your tissues throughout your body, not just in your nose and your, ear, nose, and throat.
Right.
And so this was a real learning point for me. And it was a pivot point for me. He put me on a simple diet where he said, basically, I don't want you to eat any fruit that is less dark than a raspberry. So it has to be dark, meaning nutrient dense, right?
Hmm.
So peaches are out, but I could eat dark berries, right? He's, yeah, you could eat a
Oh,
mango occasionally, but only then on its own. And, I think this is something you've also talked about. And then
wow.
asked me to eliminate wheat. And even though I'm not gluten sensitive, it's not about the gluten. There's something else that's funking up my system.
Exactly. Wow.
So get the funk
What
out,
kind
get
of
the snot
doctor
out.
was he?
A
What kind of
naturopath,
doctor
but an
was he?
MD. He was an MD who had
Wow.
decided to go towards nutrition.
What a
Doctor,
blessing.
it started with an R, I'm forgetting. But yeah, really just kind of changed my view on the whole dietary spectrum, helped me to understand that even though I'm not celiac, I have an issue with grains. And what I will say to everyone listening is that I would sense, because I love bread, but when I ate more of it, I would feel disconnected from my gut. When I eat less of
Mm.
it, even if my measurements are the same, I feel tighter around the midsection. I feel more connected to my gut. I feel more energetic. It feels easier to move around, and I don't have as much inflammation. I would get eczema on my fingers when I'm really stressed out. That doesn't
No.
happen when I'm really stressed out, as long as I keep my diet clean. So, personal
What
story,
a
but it's just showing you a use case because again, when you talk about mucus, it's not just the stuff in your nose, it's systemic.
exactly. I'm so glad you shared that. People really needed to hear that because that's what people think about when you say mucus. They think about all of that. And Professor Arnold Ehret said, really, I don't care what name you give the disease, you're on mucus overload. You're just inflamed. You're a
Yeah.
mess. And cut some of that stuff out. Man, you cleaned it up though. I
Yeah.
mean, even
Well,
with
and
the
as soon as
berries,
I
that
stopped drinking milk even,
oh
I thought milk is
wow.
okay. I'm good with milk. I like milk, and I eliminated milk, and then, I don't have the same kind of mucus stuck in my throat all the time.
Yeah.
And so, this is something that's
What a blessing, huh?
another piece that can be eliminated.
Yes.
And when you get these things out that are gunking up your system, that are making you feel funky, that
Yeah.
are causing this inborn inflammation to take residence in your entire system, including right down to your ankles, which is
Yeah.
where he like
Wow.
pinpointed it for me, you know, then suddenly you have a new lease on life.
Well, it gives
And
you a better
so
quality of life, and that's what we're all striving for, a good quality. Longevity has its place, but quality is everything.
So, in Fit for Life, which I think changed your viewpoint entirely on health and nutrition, there's, I think, quite a bit about things like food pairings and the sorts of things that you should eat together or not eat.
Yeah,
And
right.
I wonder if you could talk a bit about that and how that has helped you to succeed on your journey.
Well, number one, I learned it was just incredible. I never knew that a poor combination would be a carbohydrate and a protein because you have different digestive enzymes to break down both, one or the other. Also, fruit should be eaten on an empty stomach. I didn't realize that there were three different, you had your melons, and then you had acid fruit, subacid fruit, and sweet fruit. I didn't understand that eating a subacid with a sweet was fine, but never eat a sweet with an acid, i.e., apple and banana, good to go. But banana and orange, not so much. Melons should be eaten also alone, not with other fruit. Now, every time I went to a barbecue, Auntie had already always fixed a big fruit bowl with all kind of fruit in the same exact bowl, and we ate all that stuff together. I suffered because of those combinations. Maybe some people do not. I did. And so by me learning what to combine together, it eliminated all of that suffering stopped. And it was just a massive blessing. That's why food combining is just, hey, it's awesome as far as I'm concerned. It saved my life. It gave me better quality. I was miserable with the indigestion and the belching and couldn't use the bathroom. I couldn't go
Mm-hmm.
to the bathroom, especially number two. I could not do it. And I had doctors to tell me that. I mean, you go a couple of times a week. What? Why would you tell somebody that? If you eat every day, you should eliminate every day. Sorry, you should. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, and then the mucusless diet, I mean, that book right there was just whoa, that book was incredible.
Yeah.
Really incredible. And it made me understand a lot about who I was and how I was damaging me, how I was doing all of this stuff to myself. And once I learned that and I learned to avoid certain things, I became super healthy, really, really healthy. And I mean, I proudly say that. I think sometimes to myself, man, 20 some odd years, I'll be 100 years old. Am I going to keep feeling like this? Am I? Who
Well,
knows?
I'd say
Anyway.
you've extended your health span for sure. And ultimately, with the right type of diet and activity, that your health span can live until, you're very late in life. I interviewed, as we were getting this podcast started, Dr. Joseph Maroon, who is an octogenarian, right? So he's in his 80s and he's still
Hmm.
doing Ironman triathlons. So he's going to Kona and
There
doing the
you
full
go.
marathon, the open ocean swim, and the cycle ride, and all that jazz, and finishing. And he jokes that, I'm first in my class, might be the only one. But, he's definitely out there and doing that. And we're
That's
talking about
quality.
a neurosurgeon, a neurologist, a team neurologist for the Pittsburgh Steelers, somebody who is, top of his field and still able
Yes,
to perform at this physical level. And perhaps the two are connected, right? Because he started this
yes.
journey with his distance athletics in his 40s, and he's
Wow.
still kicking and going strong in his 80s. And so, part of it is lifestyle, part of it is commitment, part of it is also understanding the things that actually feel right in your body. And when you do something to it and it doesn't feel right, and then making the choice to say, no, I'm not going to eat that anymore, or that
Right,
didn't sit well with me. So for
right.
me, something that might be very healthy to somebody else, I'm allergic to broccoli. Can't have that, right? Sometimes it gets
Whoa,
disguised
what
in things.
happened?
So
Are you kidding?
I know, right? My mother is too. No, it's a weird thing. So it's related, I think, to hormones, but I can't digest it. It's incredibly painful. So I have to avoid all broccoli cultivar, whether it be broccoli rabe or a standard cultivar. I just can't have it. I can eat all the other crucifers, no problem, including cauliflower. That'll make me a little gassy, but it's nothing like that, right? So I just can't. I eat a lot of Brussels sprouts. I love my Brussels sprouts. Now, that being said, we all have to really kind of address what journey we're on, and we all integrate nutrition a little bit differently. We have different genetics, we have different digestive systems, we've been exposed to different microbes.
True,
So,
true.
there is this kind of element that I like to bring in, which is this concept of testing and just not guessing. However, when we're looking at something like veganism, we fall under fire a little bit for being, let's say, having diets that aren't as rich in particular nutrients like vitamin B12, which typically comes from animal
Right,
sources, or
right.
iron, or protein, or in the case of Orlo and what we're addressing here, omega 3s, because you're not eating fish and you're not getting enough of the bioavailable omega 3s.
Right.
So, are there other things that you look to beyond the standard of, okay, I get my protein from the food I eat, I'm able to integrate it from my quinoa and from my lentils and from my beans and everything else that I take in? Vegetables produce a lot of protein too. We need to remember that. And then also thinking about things like vitamin B12. Are there other things that you're looking at?
You know what? The vitamin B12 is something that keeps coming up. I have not done anything about vitamin B12 as of yet. Nothing. Like I said, I don't even go to a doctor. But it is something
Hmm.
that I am getting ready. Chris, my manager, and I discussed the whole B12 thing. And it's
Yeah.
something that we're kind of looking into together to try to figure out what we're going to do about that. I think I really need to jump on that. I do the
Well,
vitamin
what's,
C all the time, big on the vitamin
yeah.
C. So I'll let you know what happens with the vitamin B12 because I do think it's important. I've been convinced
There's
that
something
we
that
need to have it.
I learned in a recent interview when I had Crystal DeGroot on this
Yeah.
show, she said, she and her husband, they're on the same diet, right? She cooks for
Uh-huh.
him. They eat all the same food, plant-based, 100%, right?
Right.
Now, she is fine on her B12 and her husband is not. And apparently she just
What?
makes it from the food that they get. And so they're eating the same thing, same basic size
Well,
meals and
how is
everything else.
that?
Again, people are different. Each of us has our own innate abilities that are stronger or weaker. For instance, on
Oh,
myself, I can't have that broccoli, so I have to stay away from it. I go to my other crucifers to get all of
right.
those incredible nutrients from, you know, whether it be
Oh,
the cauliflower or cabbage or going to Brussels
right,
sprouts,
right,
just as my
right.
examples. I eat a lot of all those things. But in her case, she just apparently makes it more proficiently from vegetarian sources, and her husband straight does not. I have one representation of the ApoE4 allele, which is a genetic type. My genetic type is less likely to be able to make EPA and DHA and integrate them from vegetarian sources. So I need to be
Hmm.
able to get my omegas in the most bioavailable form. This is why I was so happy I found Orlo,
Right.
right? Because it's polar lipid, it's 3 times more absorbable, 3 times more bioavailable, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore less likely to develop something like Alzheimer's or have other issues that are often associated with this ApoE4 genome type. Because the thing that we learn as we go further into this nutrition rabbit hole is that every individual really has their own matrix. And it's because your gut, your microbiota is
Mm.
unique to you, and it comes from your exposure. It comes from even from when you were breastfeeding as a baby, your journey through the birth canal. All of those things
Mm.
impact your microbiome. How often you've been on antibiotics, the types of foods you ate your whole life, whether or not you were exposed to glyphosate, which we've all been exposed to
Mm-hmm.
glyphosate, right? So these sorts of things come into play, and then you can actually see it by taking a simple health screening. I get my B vitamin panel, my vitamin D panel when I do my annual. I haven't been great about it either because I don't go to the doctor
I know.
like you, but once every couple of years, I remember to go and I have them do a full workup. What I've generally seen on myself is that I tend to be low in vitamin D3, even though I spend time in the sun.
Really?
So, why is that? I'm fair skinned. I spend time in the sun. I don't tend to make vitamin D very well from the sun. It's probably genetic. I have Mediterranean descent. You have naturally darker skin. You probably don't have as much vitamin D in your system either. And so,
Probably not.
simple health screenings for some of these basics can really, really help because then you can identify here's this gap, here's what I need to touch on.
Right.
One of the things I wanted to just share with the audience is that Orlo is covering the costs of testing your omega 3 levels in your blood just by doing a simple blood prick. When you
Right.
send that in, this is third party, you can choose if you want to also be screened for vitamin D, and I think CoQ10 is the other one. Those tests we aren't covering, but you could just add it on for a little bit extra,
Mm.
and we're covering the $50 that would cost to cover
Right.
your omega
And
3
everybody should
index.
do that.
It
Definitely
just
do
makes it
that.
really easy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you're going to do one finger prick, you put 3 spots
Right.
on the little card, you send it in. You might pay a little extra if you want to see
Mm.
your vitamin D index at the same time and also your CoQ10, but that can help you identify if this is something you need to supplement with or not. The general consensus in the medical community is that under 30 grams per milliliter is under where you want to be. Um, 80 is like ideal for anti-aging. So if you're somewhere in that range, great. But some people want to push it all the way up to 80. And that's just specifically for vitamin D. And then with omega 3s, you want to be moving your index up towards 8%. Now, on just
Mm.
2 soft gels a day, I was able to get from about 4.5 to 6.5 on my
Right.
omega-3 index.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not eating fish, just getting my omegas from Orlo. So I learned that I probably need to take 1 or 2 soft gels more a day. And this enables me to personalize my
Mm.
nutrition. And by personalizing my nutrition, I can attain my best health. So
Yes.
I
Wow.
love that for
Let me-
people. And I just hope that our audience can learn through our experiences
Right.
together. And
This is, I'm so happy you shared this. And I wanted to ask you a quick question. My daughter has suffered with the effects of diabetes, and
mm,
she's challenged in terms of eating. And so she made the decision that she was going to attempt a fruitarian lifestyle.
Mm.
What do you think about that? What do you think about
Fruitarian.
fruitarian lifestyle?
There are so many fad diets out there, and I see this as one of them. There are people who argue that if we eat vegetables, that we're eating plants that don't want us to eat them. That
And
they
okay,
essentially put out into the world all of these chemicals that will harm the bugs or whatever else eats them, because they don't want us to eat their leaves and their stalks and their things like that. But the fruit itself, that is the thing that the plant wants you to eat because you're going to help disperse the seeds. And therefore, this is a way to consume food that is going to be less inflammatory. There is some truth to this, but again, it's like you're following, it's like the breadcrumbs that one particular person is laying for you without giving you all the information, right? Because
mm,
we know that consuming things like green leafy vegetables is incredibly healthy for your gut and for your metabolism, and that consuming a wide variety of foods seems to be the most health promoting, that ensuring that you don't just eat these five things all the time, that you actually get some variety means that you get nutrition variety too. Somebody
across
who
the board,
exclusively
yeah,
consumes fruits, even if they're consuming all different types of fruits, they're going to be
right.
getting plenty of vitamin C. They'll get plenty of micronutrients like antioxidants and polyphenols, which will be incredibly health promoting, which might help them on the short term. But I look at it more like I would look at a juice cleanse than a
Got
diet
it,
pathway.
got
So
it.
there are also those the one diet that's really interesting, which I was just kind of mind blown by, is the carnivore diet. And so I was listening to all of Paul Saladino's podcast episodes because I was just intensely curious about somebody taking this carnivore pathway where they want to eat, raw organ meat. And I mean, this is gross to a vegan, generally speaking, but they want to eat basically grass-fed, organically raised meats, and a lot of them, organ meats and fruits, possibly honey and dairy, and that's it for your diet. No
No,
pepper, no salt, no like added stuff to make the food actually taste better. No herbs because those are from plants. So you're not getting the turmeric and you're not getting the basil leaves because all those things are actually not good for your system. That's the lifestyle that the Paul Saladinos of the world put forward.
oh my
And
gosh.
he's been able to help people that have type 2 diabetes a lot. He's been
Are
able
you
to help
kidding
people.
me?
No, I'm not. I mean, he's been able to help people who have some of these health concerns. And they will argue that this diet helped them to achieve their best health. Now, I personally don't think that this is going to be the best solution for the long term for anybody. I frankly think that when we consume that much meat, that we're also setting ourselves up for things that we don't want to see, like kidney stones, just as one example, and also cholesterol levels that are really through the roof. Now, is the cholesterol issue really something that is connected to heart health, or is it something else? Dr. Paul Saladino will argue that cholesterol isn't something that you should really worry about, that you need to work, that cholesterol that's negative is from overconsumption of carbohydrates from plant sources like, breads and things like that. Whether that proves out over the long term is completely open to interpretation. What I think we've consistently learned about human health and also about planetary health is that balance is what nature seeks, that when
Oh,
we get
that's true.
things in balance, that we are at our healthiest. So when you bring down inflammation, it's not because you want a complete anti-inflammatory state, it's because you want things in balance. Because when you stub your
Right,
toe or when you injure yourself, your body needs to know to send the white blood cells and the army of cells to fight that infection and everything
right,
else so that you can heal.
right.
However, if you let that run out of control and ramp it, then you end up with snot in your ankles, as we were talking about earlier,
I love it. I
It's like
love
you
the
end up with
snap
out of
thing.
control inflammation that systemically affects you and that can be addressed by diet, exercise, nutrition, and a few key supplements to support your journey
Right.
too. I'm glad you asked that question. I think so many people are confused by um, they hear the latest craze and it sounds
Right,
really good. Like I need to go full keto all the time. Or
right.
and I think some of these diets are very helpful for short periods of time. So, you have shared extensively about your journey to veganism, really for health. But you also recently spoke at a Mercy for Animals event, which was also what clued Rich Roll and some others into your fabulous story.
Right.
I wondered what your journey has been like, specifically as it relates to your concern for animals and their welfare.
When I initially got on this path, I was not thinking about animals at all. I was only thinking about my eczema, my asthma, everything that was going on with me. Can I feel better? And
Hmm.
then as time went on and I began to understand my connection with what I like to refer as the whole, I am not separated from any of this life. I'm one with it. And I know that every sentient being, I just have a respect now for life, all life. Every sentient being shares this planet with me. I also understand that at 73 years old, I don't have to harm anyone to nourish myself. And I don't care for the way that humans have decided to handle animals as it pertains to it being food for us. I don't care for the abuse. I don't care for the abuse to our planet. I don't like the fact that we're cutting down precious forests for to grow food that cows don't generally eat, or
Hmm.
pigs, or chickens, or fish.
Hmm.
So there's a lot going on the planet as humans were created to be the stewards of this planet home. And I think we've made some very, very, very horrible errors, um, and very selfish errors. And so now I am a strong advocate for the health and welfare of my planet home and all life on this planet. So I'm just one with it. If I screw over that, I screw over me. That's just the way that I look at it. I can't hurt that unless I hurt myself. So yeah, I'm an advocate now. I'm an advocate of life. If that makes sense to you,
It does.
it it
And I think this
it's
stuff gets
very,
easier to
very
look
deep.
at. Yeah.
Huh?
It really is. I think it gets
Yeah,
easier to look at when you stop making the choice to put, the pork or the
yeah,
chicken or the beef on your plate, because now you
right.
can look at it without guilt, without
Yeah,
wanting to just kind of shove it to the side, right?
right. Yeah.
So I think I would be in agreement with you. I have a hard time when I see how our CAFOs operate, these concentrated animal feeding operations. And
Mm-mm.
you have to understand that every time you go to eat out at a restaurant that serves meats, you're likely getting the product of these types of operations, whether or not
Yeah,
you want to be part of that. You're part of the supply chain.
right,
And that's
right.
the sad truth.
Yeah, it
So I
is.
think I know what you'll say, but I wanted to position the close of our conversation with something hopeful.
Okay.
And really just hear from you. If you had a magic wand to wave, what would you change about our nutrition and health culture?
If I had the magic wand to wave, I think I would change our minds about eating and loving. I think they go hand in hand. And Yeah, I think I would change our minds about eating and loving. We would eat and know that we are nourishing ourselves and not killing anything. That we wouldn't even want to eat unless we knew that it was just completely and totally for nourishment. And we would always take into consideration the health of others. And I just, I don't know. That kind of makes me want to cry because I think we're just a bit selfish, and we only think about ourselves. And there's so much more. Like I said, if it's a whole and we're a part of it, then I'm hurting me too. So just embracing love and doing a better job of caring for the whole. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's all I got to say about it.
Well, what is it? The mantra of Bronner's soap, right? All of us,
Yeah,
all
so
one.
what is it?
We're
All of
all
that.
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we are.
This yeah,
That
we are.
intelligence that
So
created me created all of this. I'm a mere expression of it, and embracing all life. I think we get off on some really weird things when we don't understand the gift of this human journey. Yeah,
yeah.
it
Well,
is
my
a
wish
gift.
for you, Babette, is that we see a world in which you reach that 100 easily with grace, and where you are not medicated and you are fueled by your diet and your exercise, inspiring us all to maintain course and stay with you on that journey. So I just want to
Okay.
thank you so much for the work that you're putting into
You're
the world through your restaurant and through your Instagram platform at Chef Babette. I think
yeah.
you really are an inspiration for all of us to learn from. Um, it's my personal belief that we can all achieve our best health, our best mental state, when we really work to focus on it and be true to ourselves. And I
I
see
just
that in
love
you.
you.
I just
Shout
love it.
out to you. Shout out to you, interviewer. Oh my God, you're the best. I just really enjoyed this today. It was a conversation. I loved it. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you. Now, I will be sure to include links to everywhere people can learn more about you with our show
Please.
notes, including where they can find your restaurant. Are there any other
Okay.
spots that you might want to send them?
Well, especially stuff I eat. That's good.
Yeah, stuff I eat. And when I come down to Southern California and some trip
Please.
soon, I hope that I can come in and enjoy one of your beautiful tacos, or
There you
something
go.
more even. Whatever you're
I'll make
serving that
sure
day, I'm
not to
sure would
give
be
you
fantastic.
any broccoli.
No broccoli. I need to wear a badge like that. Please, no broccoli. I once made the mistake of trying a veggie burger at a trade show without reading the label, and it had broccoli in there, and it made for a very uncomfortable night. But
You know what?
it's not
I have to say
anaphylactic.
before we go. Since you told me that, I never throw away the broccoli stems. I always shred them, so it's a part
Hmm.
of you know. Girl, I love putting broccoli shreds on burritos. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
told me that. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm gonna
Well,
tell my employer.
that's how I got it once was in like a Boca Burger style thing, right? Because you shred it, you don't want to waste it. I don't want to
Yes,
waste food either. Another time was at a fine restaurant in Monterey where they had shredded some of the broccoli stock on top of this beautiful fillet of fish.
I
And
do
so,
that.
yeah,
I,
and it's common.
I'm so
Not very
glad you
many people are
shared that with
allergic,
me.
but myself, my mother, and one other woman that I've met in my lifetime are allergic to
Why do
broccoli.
you think I
So,
just took for granted that I could put it on everything? I'm not thinking anybody has an allergy to broccoli.
well, maybe it's just us three that I just described.
It
So
doesn't
I think you're
matter. I,
fine.
I have no, I got to be careful. I got to
Yeah,
definitely be careful. If you don't want broccoli, let me know.
I will let
So,
you know for sure.
all right, baby. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
This was
All
so
right.
fun. Thank you.
What a treasure trove. I was so happy to be able to share Chef Babette and her story with all of you. Now you can go to her Instagram at Chef Babette from Instagram.com quite easily. But as always, I will include direct links with show notes, including links to her book, Cash In on Cashews, so you can learn from these beautiful recipes, and also her restaurant in Inglewood, California. If you enjoyed today's episode, I hope that you'll subscribe. And while you're at it, go ahead and leave us a review on whatever platform that you are listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those are the two primary these days. And if you leave a comment as well, each of these actions can actually help this podcast to reach more people. As we close today's show, I hope that you'll do me a favor and raise a cup of your favorite beverage with me as I say my closing words. Here's to your health.
Thanks for listening to Nutrition Without Compromise. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to learn more, visit orlonutrition.com and join our mailing list. You'll gain access to complete show notes, features, and informative blogs, because nutrition shouldn't be an either-or.